Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the NewPrism podcast. I'm Marty.
And I'm Pete. We're glad you're all here. What's new, Marty?
So much. I mean, I should be outside enjoying the amazing San Diego weather, but actually, honestly, I've been geeking out on AI like a lot of us. I think it's totally amazing what we're seeing in terms of new tools that are coming out. It almost seems like on a daily basis, these new tools are coming out. So I've been using those tools and just learning curve is very, very steep, like it is for a lot of us. On the other hand, it's kind of interesting. We're seeing in the news a lot of these kind of continued announcements of layoffs. I think Microsoft was the most recent. Kind of interesting to see that when you read the fine line, it's like, well, we're doing that so we can invest in AI. So this is kind of like what Silicon Valley eating its own tail. What are you seeing in the world of AI?
Yeah, well, that's CapEx versus OpEx. So I think a lot of investment in AI infrastructure and people are going to be a lot more efficient. And I'm certainly seeing that as I work with these tools, just how much you can get done using these tools as a individual contributor, and it's just really, frankly, amazing. I think that's going to have a big impact on folks in the job market going forward. And my advice to young people is really make AI your superpower, because it's gonna make you super powerful as a contributor.
Yeah, yeah, and you've been using it recently, right? And kind
Well,
of doing a deep dive.
vibe coding.
Okay, all right.
And it's kind of using a whole bunch of these agents together, to kind of create a product, our Line IQ product that we'll go through today. But it's actually even beyond, kind of being a very cool and effective thing to do. It's become my new pre-race ritual, if you will.
Okay.
I took a trip last weekend up to Avenue of the Giants to run the half marathon, a beautiful course through the redwoods. And I was vibe coding in my hotel room the night before the race. Totally took my mind off the race. Actually got to a point where I had finished kind of a major aspect of the development. I slept great. I had a great run. And so maybe, vibe coding is now my new kind of pre-race game plan. But anyway.
Yeah, maybe that's an aspect of AI that hasn't been highlighted enough. That it's also a way to focus the mind and relax and so forth. But I think so. Let's get into it. So I think we're both seeing the amazing aspect of what's going on with AI. Obviously transformational, but also the tools that are coming out on, like I said, on almost a daily basis. But I think today what we want to focus on is strategic pivots. Like you and I have seen so much in our careers, both at multi-billion-dollar companies and literally startups from day one. And it's just a fact that strategic pivots come your way, usually more than once. So what do we mean by that for this episode? I think let's try to define it. I think strategic pivot, it's a fancy phrase. It's a bit in vogue right now. Silicon Valley loves its new phrases. But for our purposes, I think it means just a recognition that there's something materially not right. In other words, the company's just not performing the way that it should, not getting the growth, not getting the traction. And if you looked across the 4 Ps, you'd be like, is it a product problem? Maybe. Is it a channel problem? We thought we should go direct. Maybe we should be working through strategic partners. Is it a pricing issue? Is it the way that I'm presenting myself and marketing myself to the market? Whatever it is, it's something that you need to take some action. There's some actual action that needs to happen. Also, one comment I'd like to make is this is when we talk about a strategic pivot, we're not necessarily talking about a turnaround, right? A turnaround, that's more dramatic. That's like the company's in serious distress, and there's some dramatic action has to be taken to keep the company viable. So that is not what we're talking about here in terms of a strategic pivot. Now, obviously, a pivot is it's gonna vary in terms of how significant the pivot is, as well as how long it may take. But again, it's just that recognition that something needs to change strategically and probably quite materially. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I'm through dozens of these, kind of in different, roles within an organization. I think as a founder, my, kind of concern or thought process is, am I giving up too early on this, mission that I kind of set out on? for the company and for all the people in the company. And so that was the biggest challenge, is getting to the point where, I was ready as a leader to kind of move to that next stage and acknowledge that there was, this kind of major aspect of the business that was wrong. But I typically found that if you look deeper, there's a catalyst for the change, something like a big customer that you can pivot around, or a big partner, something that helps you de-risk the pivot, or it could be a very clear market signal. So back in the day, the pivot that everybody did was on-prem software to SaaS. And the market signal was very clear that that's the way that the things were going, and you had to make that pivot to succeed. Today, I think it has to do a lot with AI, and I imagine just about every company out there is, how do we do some type of AI reboot, restructure our business with the concept of AI as kind of a core feature to that. So I think that's kind of something that everybody is looking at today. But having done a bunch of these, I think in looking back, the decision to get to the pivot is kind of the 20% of the 80-20 rule. It's actually executing the pivot, getting your team realigned, and kind of building a successful company post pivot. That is the 80%. The effort of so.
I think that's a great point. I agree with that. I think from my own background, let me give an example. I was at a company called Sybase, which was a big data management company, and you talked about the on-prem to SaaS migration. This was kind of the world saying, "Hey, mobile enterprise is going to be a major, something that we need to embrace." And Sybase made a massive strategic pivot across the entire value chain of its business to basically position itself and get into the mobile enterprise world and really try to emerge as a leader. But it was something that getting alignment across the business and getting alignment down the ranks to be able to actually do that was no small task. And so I think in this episode, what we want to do is we want to walk through an actual pivot example and really show the value of alignment. And then I think, given where we started this podcast talking about AI, obviously AI can supercharge that process. Now we have these new tools that are amazing, and I think you and I have seen tools used in the past, right, that have been effective. I think we're sort of proponents of that. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's kind of evolved from kind of documents to cascading spreadsheets to, I think, I used to use these kind of SMART objectives back in the day when we'd use cascading Google spreadsheets across the team. And it worked, but you needed somebody to, crack the whip on the process, make sure that, all the commitments were documented, tracked, and followed up on. There's project management tools today that can be helpful, but I've never found a tool that really helps specifically get the management team aligned, creates the transparency, creates that kind of real-time view of what's going on in the company, and gets kind of alignment up and down the chain towards the goals that are going to make the company successful.
Yeah, and which can be so powerful. Yeah. So back to my Sybase example, we did use a process then we called it MOPs, measures of performance. And it was a tool to really highlight some key objectives and then try to cascade those objectives down from CEO all the way down to direct reports and then their direct reports, etc. It was actually successful and it helped, and that's why I'm a big believer that alignment can create real powerful positive results. But man, it was a lot of work, right? And maybe this was a while ago. AI hadn't really emerged yet as a tool, but it was a lot of work. So I think back to NewPrism and some of the ways that we're dealing with our clients, I think we have a unique opportunity now to really leverage AI-enabled tools and significantly improve the alignment and performance. So we have something called Align IQ, and I think you're going to set it up and describe what that is.
Yeah. So let's kind of high level. Align IQ is a web tool that you use to kind of set company objectives, cascade them down through the organization amongst departments, create interdepartment dependencies, and then get this kind of real-time view as to the progress the company's making. So I think it might be helpful if I go through some screenshots and kind of explain the basic premise here and how we develop this and how it works a little bit. The basic idea is that you create a program for a strategic pivot, as an example. Could be your annual plan, a pivot, and so on. And step one is to specify the company level objectives. And typically a program might have 5 to 8 high level objectives for the company. And we call these company MOPs, and you see them here. But let's highlight one of the company MOPs, which is launch AI enhanced platform by Q3 2025. So that's the strategic level, high level kind of company MOP. Once the company MOPs are live, department managers are then tasked with submitting what we call department MOPs. And these align with specific company MOPs. And so a department might have three to 5 department MOPs. And these are key objectives for that department to execute that align with these company objectives. And in this example, marketing has created a department MOP, prepare AI platform launch campaign by August 15, 2025. So that's the department MOP.
Okay, so high level, it's kind of like there's a pivot. Everybody knows we need to pivot. And one thing that we need to know in this example is we've got to launch our AI enhanced platform, and there's a specific date. We got to get it done by Q3 of this year. And so what you're saying is that's a very clear highest level company objective. And then people that are responsible for functions, departments underneath that have to come up with their own objectives that help meet that, right? It's like, okay, these are the things that I'm going to do in your example. Marketing's got to launch it, right? So there's going to be a ton of work involved in getting a successful launch. So they have those specific metric driven objectives that then support that highest level objective.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we have an approval process. So a department, manager submits their department MOPs. They're reviewed and approved by the CEO or whoever's running that specific program. So then, the next key step is dependencies, right? So, within any organization, departments are dependent on other departments to help them with aspects of their business. And so in this example, the marketing department is dependent on finance to approve the campaign budget by May 31st so they can operate their campaign. And they're dependent on sales to provide 10 pilot customer testimonials by July 15th, 2025. So these are dependencies that have been specified by the marketing department to other departments. And the department managers of sales and finance are very aware of these and see these in the system and can see how marketing is dependent on them. And marketing can see, which dependency they've put out there, so it's all transparent and clear.
So critical. Like I think everybody that's watching this that has managed a company, it's like, look, sales will always criticize marketing for, hey, you're just not giving me good leads. Marketing will then say, I'm giving you the best leads in the world, and you're not converting them. And then finance will say, well, I don't have enough money to support either of these efforts, right? So everybody's dependent on everybody. The cool thing about this process is it's like, look, nobody disagrees that at the highest level, there's a key objective we got to meet. So we have to figure out how to get it done. And we're all dependent on each other. So in a way, this kind of really, there's a lot of transparency here, Pete. It seems like everybody knows what everybody's stepping up to do. And I think that's really, really powerful and critical, right, for making this successful.
Yeah, and we've even added a comments, kind of capability so that department managers can kind of chat back and forth on the specific dependency to make sure that they're aligned. So again, just kind of increasing the overall transparency. So then the next aspect, so you got everything in place and the system's ready to go. The critical thing is now updating this, understanding how folks are progressing on their objectives, right? And so we have the concept of an update. These can be ad hoc, so a department manager can kind of asynchronously go and update their program when they hit some kind of milestone, or it can be on an agreed time frame. Maybe a management team gets together monthly or quarterly kind of to discuss progress, and updates happen kind of on that sequence. The key is that these updates are also completely transparent and visible across the whole organization. And a department manager can say, hey, I'm on track. Something's at risk. It's blocked. And they also track, percentage of completion. So, I'm, 50%, through my, campaign launch exercise, and we're on track to launch that in Q3, right? And so again, that visibility and that progress tracking is important for everybody to have that visibility. And then finally, the last piece is we have a dashboard level that tracks all this, so you can get kind of a holistic view of what's going on in the company, and you can immediately drill down to problem areas and see what's going on, and the team can collectively, jump on the issue so that you don't have these blockers that are showstoppers.
And this is amazing because, like, if you think about it, this is real time, right? This is like real time progress across the entire functional value chain of the company around a critical goal that everybody knows that we need to meet. So, we're so obviously in that world now of transparency, real time information, AI, proactively giving us status and so forth. And when I think about this tool, something like this had have existed back in the day when I was going through these pivots, it would have been awesome. And it would have been awesome, as well as add some pressure, right? You're running one of those functions, and maybe you should be at 60% completion. You're at 20. It highlights that, but in a way, it allows the management team and everybody to really drill on the critical issues, like how do we fix this? So I think it's cool.
Yeah, and then one last aspect is, so we've integrated AI to help teams create their MOPs, create their department MOPs, so that they're specific, so that they're measurable, and so that they're time bound. So it's very, very critical that measures of performance a MOP, right? That it is measurable and that you can track performance. And so we're using AI to help generate that, and we also have visions on how we can use AI to kind of assess overall program health as well. So that's kind of in the works as well. So that's Align IQ. That's kind of where we're at today. It continues to evolve.
Yeah, that's great. And I think one thing I'd want to comment on is, it seems very obvious to everybody that, like, yeah, if you're aligned, then you perform better. It's actually true, and it impacts the bottom line, right? And there's been a lot of studies on this, very recent studies from McKinsey. You can look at Harvard Business case studies. There's a bunch of information that basically says companies that are tightly aligned around key business objectives significantly outperform unaligned companies, right? If you're aligned and you're aligned around the right things, you're going to outperform your competition that's not. You're going to have better operating profit. You're going to have a higher shareholder return. This is all proven, information. So I think it's worth the time, it's worth the effort. And now there are tools like Align IQ that can actually help you get there very quickly. And so it's exciting. It's exciting. I think, Pete, you and I would agree, like, from our past experience, a tool like this would have been very, very useful, and most likely would have improved much, much better results.
Absolutely, yeah. I think alignment, it's easy to say, but hard to do. And I think Align IQ, can definitely help. And for folks out there, watching, if you're working through a pivot, NewPrism is here to help you, and you can just reach out to us at podcast@newprism.ai, and we'll get right back to you.
Yeah, and next time, we're gonna cover is we're gonna move a little bit up to the more upfront part of this process, which is the strategic development of those ultimate company key objectives, and that's something that we call Strat IQ. It's complementary to Align IQ, and we'll be super excited to be able to present that at our next podcast. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks. See ya. Bye bye.